First panel discussion of the day is titled Nurturing the Banyan Tree, and it is moderated by Nikunj Trivedi. I request the panelists to please come on the dais as I call their names. Suhag Shukla ji, Richa Sinha ji, Satish Sharma ji, Sukhi Singh Chahal ji, and Vibhuti Jha ji.
We're going to get going here. I am not going to do any introductions because you can see the esteemed panelists over there, their bios. You can certainly have a conversation with them afterwards. But my name is Nikunj Trivedi, and I'm the president and co-founder of KONA, Coalition of Hindus of North America, which is a grassroots advocacy and civil rights organization dedicated to improving the understanding of Hinduism in North America and working on matters impacting our community. We are, in fact, this weekend 5 years old exactly. So this is our 5-year anniversary, and it's a great pleasure to be organizing this panel with these esteemed luminaries who many of you know about, and you'll find more information about them today. So the panel's topic is called Nurturing the Banyan Tree. So Rajiv ji launched this initiative called the Banyan Tree Initiative that brings together organizations from different parts of the world. But today's focus is going to be the Western world. And what does nurturing the banyan tree really mean? Just like the different trees and roots of the different roots of the banyan tree are working together in harmony and supporting each other, we need to nurture our organizations with different types of resources, intellectual power, etc., across, so we can jointly tackle the issues impacting our civilization, our community, and, as I said, in the Western world. So each of the speakers comes from a background that has made an impact on what the narrative about Hinduism, as well as the Sanatan Dharma in general, which includes Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, etc., for us, and how to work together collectively. So the framework is what we will be talking about today. So before we start to talk about how to nurture the banyan tree, we need to set up a framework. So today I am going to invite all the panelists on 2 important points. I want them to talk about 3 to 5 challenges that they see for our community that we should be really considering. And some of the answers may overlap, naturally speaking, but I want to make sure that it's a collective list of things. The second question, which we will also go into, is according to them, what are the strategies or solutions to these challenges? And what we will do is, of course, this is being recorded, but we will summarize this information and then we will give it to Rajiv ji so that we can move this entire initiative forward. So the panelists' recommendations will be then submitted to Rajiv ji and the team to move things forward. So let's get right to it. Pandit Satish Sharma ji will be the first speaker. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Nikunji. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram, everybody. Good morning. Has everybody had breakfast? Thank you, that young man. An extra cup of tea for my friend there. Putting me first, Nikunji, is a bit of a dodgy thing. We haven't forgiven you Americans for 1776 yet. Yes. And so it's a courageous choice, but let's get started. This idea of a banyan tree. I often speak on dharmic issues, but I always use a device, and that is I explain what is not dharma. And I think I'm going to do the same thing this morning. I think we have a familiarity with a banyan tree. We know how it is a part of our culture and our civilization. We'll have seen our grandparents normally playing cards in a village under the banyan tree, and many of us will have recognized that it's worshipped and it's held in reverence. But we don't really have an intellectual framework which identifies what a banyan tree is. So I'm going to start by giving a small intellectual framework of what it isn't. Last night I was collected from the airport by Amit Shah ji. Thank you, Amit Shah ji, if you're here. It's not the Amit Shah that you're thinking of, but I'm going to use that story again and again. And I was wondering how I'm going to put this into a framework that can be easily understood. And I noticed something about the trees here. There is a tree which is indigenous to this country. It's called a birch tree. Now, a birch tree is known for a number of things. One is that it stands very tall and very proud. It grows upwards, and it doesn't last very long. It doesn't give shade. It's really a very self-engrossed sort of a tree. But there is one attribute about a birch tree which I think we should recognize, and that is nothing grows underneath a birch tree. Okay? It takes all of the resources in order for itself to stand tall and proud, which is totally the opposite of what a small brown banyan tree does. A banyan tree grows. When it's got to a particular height, it stops. It has no aspirations of reaching for the sky and showing the world how wonderful it is. It spreads out, and it creates an ecosystem in which thousands of creatures live. And like all dharmic entities, it then returns back to the soil. Its roots come down, and it establishes a very large network which expands the ecosystem even further. I thought that's a good way of putting the banyan tree into context. And I mentioned that the banyan tree is a brown tree and the birch is normally a white, tall, proud tree. And it also occurred to me then that civilizationally there is an example which perhaps we could refer to. When Columbus, on his search for India, landed on these shores, he recorded in his diary that I've met some lovely people. They're very gentle, loving. They have no anger or violence in them. In fact, if we ask anything, they want to give it to us openly, without rancor and without a transaction. We could enslave these people without more than 50 soldiers, I think is what he said, is all we need to enslave the whole lot. The indigenous people were following dharmic principles of what a banyan tree does, which is it shares. Whereas Columbus was planting the first seeds of a birch tree, which takes resources and then expands and declares to the world how wonderful it is. I'm going to stop at that moment in time, bearing in mind that an introduction is all that was called for. I look forward to sharing some more ideas. But in conclusion, I'd just like to also give a shout out to Rajivji. Rajivji, you have been a banyan tree for us all for a long time. Thank you so much for the seva that you have done. And thank you so much for the determination, the resilience, and for staying committed to the cause for so long, despite opposition from many, many quarters and resistance from, on occasion, members of our own dharmic family. So thank you, Rajivji. Jai Shri Ram.
So thank you, Panditji. Very nicely put in terms of a framework of what banyan tree is versus it isn't. Next, I'd like to welcome Vibhuti Jha ji. Comments?
Taking the cue from my dear friend Omendra Ratnuji, I'm not going to invoke Jai Shri Ram. I'm going to say Jai Shri Krishna. And that he gave a very good reason for that. He's an unusual man with great intellect. He said Ramji has found home now. Now we have to find home for Sri Krishna ji. That's the reason. Not that one gets precedence over the other. I will straight away go to the thought process which Nikunj said, that what is our problem and what are the potential solutions? And I want to take you back to exactly April 1991. That is the time when I landed in America. My job with American Express Bank at that time was to market India's liberalization program and develop Indo-US business. And guess what? When I landed here, I realized we had no story to tell. India had no narrative. We as Hindus and Sanatanis, we had no narrative. Nobody knew us. And nobody gave a damn, if I may use the American slang. Nobody. So I realized, and this is another part which is very important, I realized that we are actually very good people. We are indeed and actually a very liberal, accepting, tolerance, respecting others for what they are. My problem was that they were not accepting me as them. So I began to build the narrative, and I realized that if you don't tell others about yourself, how will they know about it? And that is what thing has been missing in us, that we have never built our own narrative aggressively, cogently, and convincingly. The second element that we have a problem is, and that is that we very easily hesitate to tell others about ourselves. We don't have to be apologetic for what we are. We don't have to say, hum aise hain. No, we have to be proud about what we are and who we are. So let me give you an example. Whenever anybody talks about why Hindus don't eat beef, I don't go into an explanation anymore. No more explanations. Instead, I confront the challenge the way it is coming to us. And I throw the question back at the person who asked me, probably the same reason that you guys don't eat horse, dog, or cat meat. Totally stunts them. Because it's important for us to remember that when somebody is asking you a question, there is a motivation behind it. And I always do that. When you do that, then it puts the other person on the defensive. And we were talking about a lot of dilemmas that we Sanatanis and Hindus face, that we accept the stamping that the world gives us. Rajiv ji has written an outstanding book on Varna, Jati, and whatever, right? Caste. But we were never caste people. At the moment, we are only giving explanations for what we are not. We are not giving the explanations for what we are. Suhag Shukla ji is battling a legal battle. Kudos to you that you are doing such a wonderful job on that. Here is this young man fighting the battle in the American soil. So we have to remember that. We easily accept a narrative that we are not. And we have to perforce defend ourselves that we are not. And that becomes very difficult. So this friend of mine wrote a very nice sentence that typifies. I asked them, is there something wrong with our DNA? In our Hindu DNA, is there something wrong with us? And he said, and I'm quoting him, we have become timid because we can't work in purposeful large teams, and we always seek individual glory. How true or false is that? You decide. But there is a very important point here, that we like to go what the Bengalis would say, ekla chalo re, march alone. But we have not forgot the Panchatantra story of coming together, the bundle of sticks. That's the story we forgot until we heard in 2024 election. Batoge to maroge, right? Kab batoge to katoge. The point which I'm trying to make is that knowledge, wisdom exists in our texts. We have never espoused it to the outside world. The third thing that I wanted to say that, nurturing the organizations. Look, this hall is full of brilliant people, and I'm honored to be part of that. Thank you, Rajiv ji, for including me in that. All of us have done outstanding work. All of us can convey a point of view. But here is the thing, mind, recapturing the mind. So we established an organization called United Consciousness, and we addressed these questions. And mind, remember one thing, words change minds, words matter, and minds move mountains. So this is where we have to begin to understand that how do we make the mind move the mountains that are stacked against us. It's not very simple to say that, our dear friend, those of you who have read her book, Asra Nomani, she did a show I hosted on P Gurus and I did with her on Jaipur Dialogue. And she said something very interesting, and including Professor Salvatore Babonis. He said the elitists in the West, the left, liberals, the Marxists, socialists, Islamists, they have found a common enemy in you. They have found a common enemy in you because the evolution and development of science and technology is enabling us, our Sanatan philosophy, to be actually recognized. Science and technology is our biggest ally, and we got to take that forward. And I have always said, this century, as a student of economics, in the Schumpeterian cycle, this century belongs to us. It's for us to take that message forward. We will come to the solution part of it a little later, but I hope you agree with me. Thank you very much.
Great, and I'd like to invite Dr. Richa Sinha to give her comments.
Thank you, Nikunj. So, I know Nikunj wants to wants me to speak about challenges, but I want to start my talk about a win. I don't know how many of you heard about the Hindu phobia motion that's been passed in the Scottish Parliament. So that's relentless work from us and our team back in Scotland. So please give them a huge round of applause. It's the first parliament in the whole world that passed a motion. Coming to the challenges, I've thought about it, and to simplify it, divided these into two. The first one, in my opinion, as a small organization from Scotland, is fairly new, is proximity to the problem. Now, what is the proximity of our Hindu organizations to the problem? 5 years back, when COVID began, the Scottish government thought that the faith communities in Scotland have a great role to play when it comes to wellness and bringing the communities together. So a faith and belief committee was formed. Some of us were already active in that space, so we were invited to join the committee. One of the things we realized when we joined this committee is that Hindus were missing from the table as an organization. So we had an organization in England that was remotely present, but not in an active space. So the first thing we had to do is to go to our organizations. Since we talk about organizations, I feel there are two primary organizations in our Hindu Samaj. One is the family, the joint family structure, and the second is our mandirs. Our mandirs are the pillars, the Hindu organizations that sustain these families, especially outside India, outside Bharat. We went to all our mandirs, and because Scotland is small, we have limited number of mandirs, and it took us all our efforts and almost a year to bring and unite all the mandirs together as a garland organization, as I call it, rather than umbrella. And we formed Scottish Hindu Foundation. Once we did that, we wrote a constitution. We formed a democratic body, so there would be an election. Every 3 years, the president would change. And the Samaj, i.e. the Hindu mandirs, will choose who the president and what they're speaking for. We then went to the Scottish government and we said, we have the mandate to speak on behalf of the Hindus. Now, I want everyone to look here and find out how many of us as an organization are talking to each other, and how many of us as an organization are talking to our policymakers, our governments who legislate on behalf of us. So Hindus talking about Hindus on the table will create a much bigger impact than Hindus talking to each other. So I don't know how many legislative body people have been invited today. My suggestion again for next year or whenever this happens again is invite the local councils, the local governments, the local legislative bodies, so they listen to what the Hindus have to say. So once we did that, we had a whole different set of problems, and I will not go on about problems, but Nikunj knows some of these problems. We then had a problem about, we were lucky in the way there was no other dishonest actors or non-Hindu bodies who were talking in behalf of Hindus in Scotland. But in other parts of the world where more evolved communities are present, they may have that problem. So how do you then deal with dishonest bodies and non-Hindu bodies? So imagine we are the only community, or probably the only community in the world, that allow non-Hindu bodies and non-dishonest bodies. We don't question them and allow them to operate in the government space. And that's where a lot of the problems start. So my second, again, this is very short. I won't want to go on and on about it, but the problems that we encounter a lot of the times is because we're missing from those spaces. Now, when we have two legitimate bodies, those two legitimate bodies need to find a space to unite and talk about it. The Samaj has to intervene in. When I say Samaj, the mandirs. How many mandirs presidents or trustees are here today, I don't know. Again, that's a good start to bring them on. So once this has happened, we can go and say the mandate is for the Hindus to talk to Hindus and by the Hindus to the government. So nobody else speaks on our behalf. The second problem that I see, and again, I hope, as the panel discussions go forward, we'll have more answers, is what does a win look like? If we are a few people on this panel, if you ask each one of us, what does a win look like when all the organizations come together in, say, 20, 30 years' time, all of us will have a different point of view as to what a win look like. So we need to come together, and again, this is a great effort from Rajiv Ji and Infinity Foundation to bring us all together to start talking about what does a common win look like. So if we have done something in the Hinduphobia space, you don't have to do all the work. I mean, some of the work that we borrowed was from, Hindu American Foundation. Last year when I was here at the Kohana meet, I discussed that policy document in detail. So that policy document is for everyone to take everywhere, and how we are, talking to the government and the legislative bodies to bring that into a legislative form, the word Hinduphobia and how it's going to be legislated upon. Because as of now, Scotland remains the only country in the world that criminalizes hate crime. And Islamophobia, anti-Semitism are on there, and nobody, the justice services, the police, they don't have a clue how to legislate upon Hinduphobia. So unless you're closer to the problem, you're not going to be able to sort it. And unless you know what the win looks like, you're not. And win could be as futuristic as you want it to be. If a win looks like, what does Hindus look on space? That could be a win. Let's start talking about it. A Hindu Dharmic corridor, what does that look like in 20, 30 years old? Let's start talking about that. Unless we have a vision, we will, as a company, as an organization, even as an individual, we are taught to have a vision. How is it that as organizational, sort of collaboration, we don't talk about a common win? So these are the two I won't go on, but we'll discuss more. Thank you.
And great, thank you. And we'll come back to those. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Suhag Shukla ji for her comments.
Thank you. First of all, happy anniversary to Infinity Foundation. I recall the first time I met Rajiv Ji was probably 24 years ago, right before we had filed our papers for starting the Hindu American Foundation. And he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Are you willing to give up your life for this cause?" And he has amplified what that means, is to dedicate your entire life to this. So I really ask everyone to give him a big round of applause for 30 years of fighting the good fight. I know we were supposed to give 3 to 5. I'm picking 1 in the interest of time, but also because I'm an optimist. I still am an optimist in spite of all the punches that we oftentimes take. And I picked this challenge because it poses an opportunity. And that is that we have a crisis of identity. Who are we and who do we need to be? And it's really been a guiding question for us at the Hindu American Foundation for the past 23 years. And that question isn't for people in this room, a room full of unapologetic and active Hindus. But it's about who's not in the room. All the Hindus who are outside these walls, and you know them. They are the uninformed, everyday Hindus who are just going about doing their thing. They're the ambivalent Hindus who might know the challenges but care not to take action. They're the modern Hindus. They're too scientific or they're too sophisticated to identify with our ancient ways. And then there's the ex-Hindu. I want you to think about your children and your friends. 1 in 5 will not identify as Hindu. This is not a statistic to fearmonger, and it's not hyperbole. A recent survey by the Pew Forum found that 18% of Americans who are raised as Hindu no longer identify as Hindu. That should serve as a wake-up call. So why does a crisis of identity matter? Because the strength of our institutions determines not only the survival of Hindu Dharma in this country and around the world, but the thrival of it. And the strength of our institutions, what we build, how we develop, how we fund, how we staff, how we sustain our institutions, depends on confident and constructively engaged Hindus. And they depend on a constituency for us to serve. If there are not Hindus to serve, what are we doing building all these institutions? Now, some of our institutions will be affected less than others. Cultural, when it comes to music or dance, maybe they won't be necessarily as adversely impacted with a crisis of identity. Temples, a little bit more. And certainly if there's major shifts in immigration policy, the constant flow of immigrants who very often attend our temples will be cut off. I know from my own experience that I very rarely meet a second generation Hindu American in the temples that I've been active with. Where are they? If we don't have that steady flow, who are our temples going to serve? And most definitely, education and advocacy initiatives will be affected because we're vulnerable to this existential problem. We're seeing unprecedented attacks on our fundamental rights, and they're coming from both the left and the right. And we need an army to fight them, but instead we have squads. How are we going to build those squads into the powerful armies that are necessary to fight these big fights? So what are we up against? We're up against millions of dark money dollars fueling anti-Hindu forces. Hindus for Human Rights, how many of you are familiar with this organization? It has actually nothing to do with Hindus nor human rights. They get $800,000 from the Tides Foundation. They don't represent our community, yet they're able to capture institutions and box us out. Other organizations, and I'm sure my friend Sukhi Ji will be talking about this, but those organizations that are supportive of separating and breaking India, like the Khalistani movement, they've gotten over $1 million in dark money. So, and then we have, our last segment, and that is that when you have everyday Hindus who are not aware of the issues, when you have ambivalent Hindus, when you have modern Hindus, they are all vulnerable to the propaganda and divisive activism of the anti-Hindu Hindu. We've talked about our children. They're the most vulnerable. We raise them as Hindus in our homes, in our mandirs, and then they go off to college and they do a 180. We need to address this identity of crisis, and I will look forward to answering some of the ways that we've been doing that over the past 23 years. Thank you.
So Sukhi Chahal ji, please, your comments, building off of what Suhag ji said, but also as someone who has been working with the Hindu community as a proud Sikh, how your experience has been, what challenges you see.
Thank you. Namaskar and Sat Sri Akal to everybody. Yesterday, it was Shri Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's, we can say, birthday or Gurpurab. I saw the message yesterday from some friends of mine on the social media कि सिखों के 9वें गुरु श्री गुरु तेग बहादुर जी के प्रकाश पूर्व की बधाई हो. Nothing wrong, but I found it very interesting, and this is where I think we are missing the piece. What we are missing and what we are talking about, actually, so what our future generation needs to know. I'm not concerned about this generation. I'm concerned about our future generation. Sikh community has a lots of contribution everywhere, in every field. I'm a Sikh, I'm proud to be a Sikh. Hindu, Sikh, we have an inseparable relationship. We have to teach our future kids, our future generation, who was Guru Tegh Bahadur. Guru Tegh Bahadur was not only the Sikh Guru, he sacrificed his life for the Kashmiri Pandit, for the protection of the Hindu religion. Why the people from the Kashmir came to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji? When there is a hard time, when there is a trying time, you come to the person where you trust, जो अपना हो. वो अपने थे, गुरु तेग बहादुर जी के पास आए और गुरु तेग बहादुर जी ने sacrifice किया. That's a kind of relationship we have. Another thing, at least I see is very unfortunate within the Hindu community, because I am very blunt, and please, I don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, so I speak my mind and just take it as a hard pill. There were three other, Pai Matidas, Satidas, Dyallaji. They came from the Hindu community. Not too many people knows. They were tortured on behalf of the Aurangzeb, right? On the where the Chandni Chowk Gurdwara Sahib is, right? Nobody talks about them. Their sacrifice is also as equal to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji should not be celebrated only in the Gurdwara or only within the Sikh community. His sacrifice, along with Pai Matidas, Dyallaji, and Satidas Ji, should be celebrated in every Hindu home. When Guru Gobind Singh Ji, there was a Panch Pyare Khalsa Panch ki sadhana hui. Who were the five Pyare, first Pyara? They did not came from the Ludhiana or Jalandhar or Patiala. They came from all over India. They came from different religion. Different caste. They were speaking different language. They sacrificed for Guru Gobind Singh Ji. They are the foundation of the Khalsa. I run the foundation. Intentionally, I name it the Khalsa today. Because on the foundation is not only, nobody can say at least a Sikhs only. No. Khalsa is everybody. And we are proud of India. They are very violent people. They are radical. They are spreading the hate between the Hindus and Sikhs intentionally. As Suhag said, they are very well funded. They have millions of dollars. But one thing I have to learn from them, they are committed, they are dedicated, and whatever they do it fearlessly. They are only less than 50 people driving everybody crazy. End of the day, they are more dangerous to the Sikh community than anybody else. They are causing more damage to the Sikh community. Wherever they are nonsense, whatever they do, end of the day, we say, oh, Sikhon ne kiya. Not too many people. We have to teach our future generation that Sikhs are our brothers and sisters. We have an inseparable relationship. This is our history. From Guruon se lekar, how we sacrifice by Chote Sahibzade, who sacrificed actually Nihon mein chine gaye Aurangzeb pe kyunki they did not convert to the Islam. It was all the atrocity happened to the Sikh gurus on behalf of the Aurangzeb or the Jahangir and all the Islamic ruler. We have to know, we have to teach our kids. If we don't teach them, nobody else is gonna do it. So we have to work together. And also, as Suhag said, we have to, it is not going to be one organization over here. All organizations somehow, like we are all sitting together, we have to sit down and there has to be a collective effort. It is not a one organization responsibility because in the near future, you will see some intentionally lawsuit coming up against somebody, some Hindu organization, which I'm already very well aware of that. We have to fight it together. Unfortunately, sometimes कहते हैं अभी Sukhi का issue है, Suhag का issue है, किसी और का issue है. No, should be collective. But when we are talking about the Sikhs, please do consult the people, those who understand the history and also understand the cause. By calling anybody, like suppose if I disagree by calling them Khalistani, it's gonna do more damage. So that's why I see many people from the moderate community, 95%, they are also leaning on the other side. People come to me, they ask me like, Sukhi ji, why you are calling everybody Khalistani? No, we should not. We should identify these are radical, they are the violent people, this is the nonsense they are doing. Their end goal is to capture the Sikh Gurdwara. This is how they are hurting the Sikh community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we had a combination of some challenges, but also some solutions that I can summarize. Maybe I'll give 1 minute to every panelist. We're running out of time, so maybe quickly based on some of the solutions that you see, but 1 minute only, because we have to wrap up.
I'm 4.5 hours behind where I should be, so please excuse me if I don't quite hit the 1 minute. There are two things which I think are the most important things that we should be able to understand, embody, and pass on to our next generation. First is I don't think our community have a clue of what it is that we're protecting. This is of absolutely vital importance. If you don't know what it is you're protecting, then how are you going to give it the appropriate priority? Why is it there are so many groups who are targeting us for extinction? They know what it is that we are protecting without us knowing it, and they feel it as a threat. The tattva of our tradition is that we have refused to be enslaved. Everybody has wanted to enslave us and consume the fruits and the benefits of our darshana, our sadhana, our hard work. Everybody appreciates Hindus. Nobody respects Hindus. We relish being appreciated because we're coming out of colonial difficulties. But we should actually demand to be respected. We are the nation which used to call itself Aryavrat, the land of the noble people. When one of our children walks into a room, he should be so empowered and stable in himself that they walk in and everybody says, Iske paas kuch hai. I want that nobility that this person has got. A person who is truly ennobled can never be enslaved, and that is what it is they're trying to do to us. All of this talk about conversion, about religion, it's all confusion. Confusion is a tool of the enemy, and we are so prone to becoming confused. We relish becoming unconfused. But at the end of it all, it's very simple. We, like the Pandavas, pose an existential threat to those who have aligned with Duryodhana. They will not even give us 5 villages for us to just do what we want to do, because naturally we embody a idea than enemy bodies, and they know it, and we need to know it too. Jai Shri Rama.
Talking about the solutions part of it, I have adopted a quotation from Albert Einstein in my life. And actually, I've adopted 2 quotations, because I know that reading a book of quotations doesn't make you a smart or a good man or a successful person. So I adopted 2. One of them is, any intelligent fool can complicate a simple problem. It takes courage to move in the other direction. Keeping that particular philosophy in mind, I realize that we end up arguing a lot between ourselves, the argumentative Indian. Its time has come to what my friend said, individual glory seeking. Let's begin to support each other. Support Kona, support Panditji, support Suhag, support Sinhaji, support Sukhi. Whoever's ideas you like, go all the way. Support them. But if you do not agree with some particular solution, leave them alone. Don't try to cut them down to size. Don't undermine them. That's one thing that I want to urge all of you. To that end, I came up with a solution. I call it C3M. I have not copyrighted it, so you can use it. And I'm telling everybody here, learn to collaborate, cooperate, coordinate, and mobilize. It doesn't mean that Kona is doing, so leave them alone. But there are issues which are affecting everyone. So if they take a lead on something, support. Let every organization join hands. If HAF is doing something, let's join hands with them in whichever way we can. I'm saying that it is time for all of us to adopt the C3M formula instead of trying to undermine or cut others to size. The other thing which came about in my mind is, this is something a Harvard management consultant has told us, the Bankers Club in Bangalore in 1983. He said, we Indians do not need to go to Ivy League and Oxford to learn lessons of life. We have to study, not read. We have to study our own texts of Mahabharata and Gita, because all life lessons are out there. So the point which I'm trying to say is that go back to reading those texts and analyzing and studying them. And finally, go back to doing meditation, pranayam, and yoga, because that's where mental toughness comes. Many people get confused with the idea that I'm doing meditation and pranayam and yoga, which means hum soft and shitil ban gaye. Not really. The most successful people in the world are the ones who have shown mental toughness, whether in the battlefield, sports arena, boardroom, or any performance yardsticks that you take. These three elements give you the mental strength. And that's where we need to develop that. Thank you very much.
I think Vibhuti Ji said everything I wanted to say there. The 4 C's, as Satish Ji said, the confusion part. Of course, yes, we absolutely, there is a problem to every solution in our community. So I agree with that. We need to simplify. So clearly define our problems, going back to challenges. Clearly define problems, write it down, then we start working on it. And then the other 3 C's that Vibhuti Ji talked about. From an organizational level, I think it's a cue for us as well to ask for help. A lot of the times organizations are trying to do too much. I mean, clearly that's what we see. So going out and seeking, there's a lot of help at hand. You know, there's a lot of well-meaning people in our community who want to do something, but they don't have the guidance to where to do. So again, going back to my previous thing about being closer to the problem, as in the closer to where these policies are and legislations are made. Once we get closer to the problems, we then need to deploy all our resources to make sure those problems are reversed. And to deploy all the resources, we then have to go back to the community, ask for help, seek out. A lot of the work that we do in Scottish Hindu Foundation is around seeking out that help from the community itself. There is such intelligent people who are sitting behind us, becoming keyboard warriors, but they don't know what to do. But us speaking to the government bodies, we have a good sense of what the problems are. So now if we unite the two, we have a win. And then again, in terms of sort of joining hands now internationally with different organizations around the world to magnifying a win, that itself, a narrative creation, all of those things can start again from very simple steps of writing that email or picking up that phone and start talking to each other about how we define a problem, or magnifying something like the Hindu phobia motion has been. Where does that's just one small party that's put the motion. Now we are we're working with Labour, Conservative, Green Party, Lib Dem, all the parties we are working behind so that this becomes a legislation. Now, when we have done it, now pick up the phone, speak to us about how we've done it, and we will show you how you can do it in your democratic space. And similar cue, Nikunj has done some great work, and American Hindu Foundation, on swastik. We have that problem. Swastik is banned in Scotland. So I'm going to be picking up the phone and finding out how do we deal with that. That's our next problem. So yeah, picking up the phone, networking, a big part of networking is what we're doing here. And I think we've started on the right note, and I hope this will end in something more meaningful in the long run. Thank you.
I talked about an identity crisis, and one solution I see to that is articulating a Hindu American, a Hindu British, a Hindu Scottish, Hindu Canadian identity that is distinct from a Hindu Indian identity, but that is still rooted in our ancient traditions and our ancestral teachings and tied to our sacred homeland. And the reason for this is that our realities as micro-minorities in the diaspora are very different from the realities in India. And very often, some of the biggest challenges that we're facing today, the onslaught to our civil rights, are weaponizing realities on the ground there and mapping them on to our realities here, and it's a misfit. So recognizing that these realities and challenges and opportunities can help us build, grow, and respond to the needs of our communities here, and to achieve our ultimate goal of the preservation and protection of Dharma. Now, this call to revisit what are those identities in the diaspora are very Hindu in nature, because they're asking us to adapt the tradition to time and place. How do we communicate our teachings in a manner that resonates and articulates their meaning, their relevance, and their utility with this and future generations, to navigate life's ups and downs, and to rise above selfishness, to live dharmically, and to live in a manner that serves a greater good? What does it look like to remove the colonial and Marxist lens from our story? This is something that Infinity Foundation and Rajivji have been doing for 30 years. And how do you reverse the gaze, as he says? How do we tell our stories to inspire more Hindus to stand up and speak out against attacks on our way of life? And so how do we, in the end, basically what I'm asking is, how do we pay the debt to our ancestors? We have survived in spite of sequential colonizations, deliberate actions to try to annihilate our culture and our way. We are the only indigenous pagan tradition that still survives today, and we owe ourselves to uphold that.
I think it becomes my second nature. Wherever I go, I have many more enemy. I create more enemy. I want to talk about the India-US relationship, which is very important because we are all ambassador actually, so we have to promote. If we are not going to promote India-US relationship, nobody else is going to do. Nobody from the Pakistan is going to come over here and build up relationship, right? One of the interesting fact actually I admire, by the way, Narendra Modi ji, what he has done for the Sikh community. I think jab पिछले जन्म में वो सिख थे, या अगले जन्म में सिख बनेंगे. The way he is reaching out to the Sikh community actually, he has done fantastic job. I never met him. I'm trying for almost 10 years actually to meet him. Actually somehow I'm not successful. But the last year, December, I met Amit Shah ji and I met Jogi ji. And I think I'm really glad actually, so all Hindu community should be proud of that. They have also the two Surbir within the Hindu community. I'm so impressed because when I meet them personally, sit down with Amit Shah ji in the middle of the night for more than 1 hour at his home, it was amazing conversation. But whatever Narendra Modi ji is doing, even for the Sikh community, he has done a lot. But his message is not going within the Sikh community. I'm being very blunt, very honest. Whatever he can do over there, it is not going to matter over here. I'm being very honest, and I hope somebody from the PMO is listening what I'm talking about. He has opened the corridor, Kartarpur Sahib corridor, and at that time, many people were saying actually, so this is the national issue, national security issue. He said, no, this is regarding Guru Nanak Dev Ji, but I have to respect the Sikh feeling actually, so I'm going to open that one. He did it. 550th birthday Guru Nanak Dev Ji was celebrated all over the world, every embassy, every consulate, everywhere. And then there was a list was prepared, there was a blacklist prepared by the Congress government for 220 people from the Sikh community. Narendra Modi groomed this one, removed that one. People were suffering for more than 20 years actually from the Sikh community. They were not able to go back to India. So because they came here during that time when terrorism were there, actually they filed a political asylum actually. So that does not mean actually we don't have any relationship with India. He did a fantastic job. I'm glad actually. So I really appreciate many people from the RSS. Sangh, nobody can talk about the Sangh in Punjab. Actually, I always say, and I'm going to say tomorrow, I have a very good relationship and I have so much respect for the Sangh community, especially the Sangh leadership. They did a fantastic job. And so then after doing all of this one, message is still not going down there. I think that message has to go back to the PMO and we have to activate, we have to reach out to the people. People want to talk to us. Unless we are not going to reach out to them, it is not going to help because we need help. The people like us, we will, otherwise we are pretty much at the edge actually, so we are falling apart. We are going down and you will not see me on many other functions. I came here only for Mr. Malhotra. I have a relationship with him and he personally invited me, so that's why I'm here. You may not gonna see me on other events. I gave already in the writing because enough is enough, because when you don't have any support, you cannot consistently going, you cannot fight with all these radical elements, those who are well funded. So my respect, again, please try to understand the Sikh psyche. Sikhs are not bad, actually they are brother and sister. We have to understand the issue and we have to work with them. And also we need some help from the India side too, so that we can also save the Sikh Gurudwara from these radicals. Otherwise, these radicals, they are going to take over all the major Gurudwara. It is going to be the problem not only for the Hindu, not only for the India, but also for the Sikh community. Collective effort is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to once again recognize the panel for their great thoughts. I would like to maybe ask you to rise, hold the book so we can take a picture.